Hi, and welcome to this edition of Peak Life. Today we're going to be talking about some of the changes in the Virginia marijuana law. And joining me is Chesapeake Commonwealth's attorney, Matt Hamel. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Karen. I really appreciate you having me back.
So what are the main changes in the law?
Well, I'm glad that you brought this topic up because in the 2021 legislative session, the General Assembly did make pretty sweeping changes to the laws governing marijuana in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The main change was that possession of marijuana became legalized. And there still are a lot of rules, there still are a lot of confusing rules, so I think it's a good conversation to have.
It absolutely is. I thought a lot of them seem to need some clarification because I think there's a lot of miscommunication going on.
Yes.
So let's start with edibles. Are they legal?
Well, again, possessing marijuana or products that are derivatives of marijuana, the General Assembly changed that so that even in a public place, a person can carry up to an ounce of marijuana or edibles or some form, and that is no longer criminalized. From 1 ounce up to a pound, if you are carrying that amount in a public place, that would be treated as a civil violation and carries a fine up to $25. And then over a pound, a person could be prosecuted for a felony that would include no less than 1 or more than 10 years of jail time, a $250,000 fine, or both. But to answer your question, yes, in small quantities, that is no longer a criminal violation under the code.
So how much marijuana can someone have in their home, and that including plants, if someone were to have plants?
Well, that's a good question, and there is some confusion about that. With regards to home cultivation, and anything that I just said before, by the way, is for adults 21 years of age and older. So I think it's important that we clarify that if you are under 21 and you are possessing any amount of marijuana, that is still a crime. And so we need to make sure that we're very clear about that. But with regards to I think your question of cultivating plants in people's homes, in your private residence, you can cultivate up to 4 plants. But what I think is kind of interesting that most people don't know because they don't go into the code provision of 4.1-1101.1. But in order to do that, you have to ensure that that plant is not visible from the public. You have to take precautions that people under the age of 21 won't get access to that plant. You're supposed to attach a legible tag to each plant that identifies your name, your driver's license number, or your ID number, and that you are cultivating that plant for personal use. So it still remains illegal, though, to buy and sell marijuana. But as far as answering that question, you can have up to 4 plants. And there really are confusing rules, but it seems like you can also possess larger quantities in your home as long as you're not possessing it with the intent to distribute it or not intending to, buy or sell marijuana.
So is it legal to get it from another state?
Oh, well, now that brings up a whole nother interesting set of issues that you're touching on. I think this is exactly why this conversation is so important, is that while the state law has changed in Virginia, the federal laws have not changed. So it is still illegal to possess marijuana or buy and sell marijuana under federal law. So when you are buying seeds or marijuana or something from another state and it is involving interstate travel, you could be guilty of a federal crime. And so people need to be very careful about these things. And I think it would be, a good idea to look into the way the statute's written because the federal law has not changed.
I know a lot of people may think, okay, well, it's legal now in Virginia, so I can, take it to a concert or to a public venue. Is that the case?
No. While public consumption does remain illegal, and that's something that people need to understand, is that you don't want to be doing that, and certainly for anybody under the age of 21, it's certainly illegal even to do that in their own home. But for people ages 21 and older, it is illegal to consume in public. It's also illegal to consume while you're operating a vehicle. It's also illegal if you're a passenger in a vehicle and you are consuming marijuana. And so that's something that really impacts my office. And even as a father with children that are now old enough to drive, I'm very concerned about our motorists driving under the influence. And so just because certain things have become legal, people need to be careful about these public safety concerns as well.
So it's comparable to driving while drunk.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So paraphernalia, we talk about paraphernalia. Is that legal to buy that?
No, technically that is not, that law has not changed.
Okay. So what about stores? Are there stores? Are there places where someone can buy it? I mean, you mentioned you cannot purchase it at all. Like say somebody has a plant and they want to give it to a neighbor or friend, it would have to be gifted.
Yes, that is true. However, there are certain exceptions dealing with medical situations, and there are some sanctioned dispensaries or places to obtain marijuana legally, but that would be in consultation with the medical provider, and people can certainly go to the Department of Health Professions Board of Pharmacy website. That's under dhp.virginia.gov. So there are certain...
Right, for medicinal purposes, that's a whole nother...
A whole separate issue.
Absolutely.
And so that's not really the focus of what happens and how my office becomes involved. But I think it is important while we're having this discussion to say that there is that nuance.
So going back to like being under the influence, can someone be fired if it's in their system?
Well, yes, under certain circumstances, right? Obviously, people can't be discriminated against for following the law, but certainly if you're in a federal employment or you have a job that involves public safety, certain requirements, people cannot be under the influence while they're at work, and so there could be policies for certain professions. And so I would recommend people consult that through their employer. But yes, it is legal to fire certain people for being under the influence while at work or in their profession. And certainly if people are engaged working for the military, in the federal sector, public safety.
Right.
I think that those bring up concerns where people really need to be careful and consult with their employer.
So it really doesn't seem like it's as cut and dry as one would think when, I think people hear, it's legal in Virginia, so now
it's a free-for-all.
It's a free-for-all, more or less.
Right.
But there are a lot of regulations. So if someone wanted to get more information on that, where do you push someone to find more information or to get specifics?
Sure. Well, I think a good place to go is cannabis.virginia.gov. It happens to be, a government website. There's VA Normal, VANORML.org is another site. And then again, I mentioned the Virginia Department of, the Board of Pharmacy is also for folks that are interested in that. That would be a good place to go as well.
Okay, so if someone has questions, those are great places. And thanks for coming on and helping to clarify some of this because it can be a bit confusing for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it, Mr. Hamel.
I appreciate being here as well, Karen. Thank you.
Well, that does it for this edition of Peak Life, and we'll see you next time.